What's your name?
I'm Scott Barrett from Australia. I'm here flying an airborne C4.
Okay.
And first time in Europe and having a blast.
And what did you do today? You made goal.
I made goal. I made goal in the fastest time, and I was first across the line. Had a really good day charging through the mountains, and there's a few strategic moves towards the end which made the day particularly interesting.
Okay, so take us through the flight from the beginning. You took off early?
I took off at a reasonable time so that I could make the first start gate if I chose. Hung out with the guys and spiraled down in the middle of the valley in some sync and took some photos of launch and the gaggles that were out there, and just taking a bit relaxing. There's a lot of guys racing in the before the races even started. Just let them come up through the gaggles and have a play around, take some photos and have something to remember it by. Just taking it pretty cruisy at the start. Most of the gaggle had taken the first gate, and I watched hordes of pilots headed off on the task. I started on the second clock, which was 20 minutes behind most of the crew, and had the advantage of seeing where they were climbing well and where they weren't, and I was able to link up 3 thermals to take me through to the second turn point, and shortly after the second turn point the lead gaggle was above me.
What was the second turn point?
Don't know.
Okay.
I look at numbers on the GPS. People talk about all sorts of different names and ridges, but it's just mountains and sun and wind to me. So we did fly over a big lake, and nice and pretty and all of that, and a lot of gliders started scattering and going on glide in different directions to work our way around to turn point 3. It's a really good racing ridge out there today which faced west, and it was pretty important to know how well that was going to work through the day, to be confident in just not stopping and pushing along in some really strong lift and make one big climb at the end and cross over the valley.
So classic cross-country flying racing.
Yeah, just being careful about the seconds, I suppose. Being quite skimpy on taking very light lift and just taking enough light lift. So if you're in a 2 metre a second, 1.5 metre a second, just taking that for just as far as you need to make it to the next 3 metre. And so being prepared to push on low paid off for me. It was an important part in the race once for me.
Where did you get low?
I just made it with enough height to make it onto the hill after second turn point. And that put me just under the lead gaggle. And I got to fly with Gordon Rigg for a bit. We took an odd line going into one of the big mountains after the second turn point on our way to the third. We're on the way from third into the fourth. We took an odd line to go into one of the bigger mountains there.
Why was it odd?
It was odd compared to what the other guys were doing. There were some other guys who had chosen a different line. It looked to me like it faced the sun a bit better and had a nice gully that could collect a heap of nice hot air that was waiting for us. We got to climb out, but the shade cut it down, and unfortunately it cut it down for the entire gaggle. Like, we were within 1,500 feet of the lead gaggle prior to entering into the shade, and it really turned the whole field over. We ended up with a heap of guys from the thermal before. They were still in good sun, and they come over the top of us, and so a lot of the guys on the first clock were ended up with people who were a little bit slower than them coming over the top. They made a bit of a strategic error. The ground had been shaded for quite a time ahead, even though the sun had just started to appear. But some of the guys at the very top who were coming from behind raced themselves into a lot of shade and some slow climbs.
So what did you do? You hung around waiting?
Well, I was a little bit lower. I was flying along with Martin and with Gordon, and a little bit later we saw Alex as well. We made a move, because we were a little bit lower at this stage than the guys who would come from behind and come over the top. They went charging on into the shade, and we chose not to take the turn point. We went into the sun and waited for better conditions on course line, and then we had a race amongst ourselves, overtaking the guys who had had a hard time and were sitting low on the hills or low in the valleys, and we raced over the top of them, and it was just a matter of putting yourself at the top of the gaggle, going on to final, and final was an interesting final. No one was prepared to follow me on to a 15 to 1.
So you led out?
Yeah.
On your own?
Yes, and we've glided across, diagonally across the valley from the far side, made quite a long glide. But some previous days had shown, like in practice here, that the valley works reasonably well in the afternoon, and that there's not a lot of sink to be afraid of here in the valley. And I pulled considerably better final glide than the other guys coming on in. The guys I was racing with, I didn't need to push it too hard, but and in hindsight I probably shouldn't have pushed it too hard. I still had 20 minutes on the guys I was with.
You beat them by 20 minutes? I
beat them by more than 20 minutes.
What was your final time?
I don't know. I had an interesting moment when I handed in my GPS, and the scorer said, "Your track log shows that you didn't make goal." I said, "No, I'm pretty sure that I was there." and I'd actually landed and packed up on the far side of the visual goal. It's a second track log,
right?
Because I've always got two. The other one said that I'd made it. So anyway,
good.
We already knew that I'd made it.
Yeah. Good. All right. Well, congratulations, and you're going to do the same thing tomorrow.
The weather conditions will determine what happens tomorrow, cool. And I'm sure the task will be different, and there'll be some different strategic moves and some different luck that applies to everyone as usual.
Excellent. Right. Thanks very much.
Welcome.
Cheers.